Sit down! Nobody talk! Sit down! We drink water and relax! You are sad? There are many sads. I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I know that. Don't make faces. He's only the one in my team. I try to do my best. It's all. In a few years you can be a manager and you can do it. No problem. But until now, guys, I am the boss and I decide.
Pep, Manchester City. So Pep Guardiola is one of the most decorated managers and has a philosophy that has been quite strong that has enabled him to dominate teams all over Europe. Guardiola's constant innovation and constant tweaks in his tactical system has made him one of the best managers in world football. One clear example is the use and deployment of John Stones as a midfielder in a 3-4-2 system. So in this system, he adapted Stones by playing him in midfield, showcasing his remarkable success in making in-game tactical changes, and this change made him win the treble last season. So you need to understand that Pep Guardiola's main football tactic involves quick rotations, one-touch passing football, and exciting slow build-up possession-based football. The main aim is to have qualitative and quantitative superiorities in both the progressive phase of play and the attacking phase of play. The main aim is to overload the opposition's backline by having his wingers start quite wide and having his two attacking midfielders playing close to his center forward. This enables Pep Guardiola's team to always have an extra man in attack. And this also enables him to be quite strong and aggressive to limit counter-pressing situation. And one of the things that has made Pep Guardiola so dominant and so strong in his entire footballing career is the adaptation of positional play. There is still no manager who has come up with a tactic that is so better than Pep Guardiola's positional play football tactic. Before we continue, I'd like you to like, share, and subscribe. One of the key strengths of positional play is the building from the back. This involves the use of a goalkeeper who is excellent with the ball at his feet, two ball-playing centre-backs, a holding midfielder who's comfortable on receiving the ball under pressure, and fullbacks giving the team width in the defensive third. From this clip here, you can clearly see how Arsenal are able to beat Manchester City press through quick, fast-time passing, and this is done because of the excellent center backs and their goalkeeper to be able to evade the pressure and reach the final third where they score an easy goal. Unlike how the traditional pitch is divided, in positional play, Pep Guardiola uses this grid-like structure to define his pitch. His vertical zones are divided into 5 zones, the wide areas, which are 2, the 2 half spaces, and the central zone, while the horizontal space is divided into 6. This enables the players to learn and understand which areas of the pitch they are able to occupy and where they should move in event a teammate moves in a different direction. Positional play is predominant in 2 formations, the 4-3-3 and the 3-4-3. Now, because most teams will not line up in a straight line, that is 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, and 3 attackers, this will enable the team to be easily pressed and will not enable the team to progress with the ball. So the team has to be arranged in a staggered position. One of the key principles of positional play is no more than 2 players in a vertical space, that is 2 players in a half space, 2 players in a central zone, and 2 players in the wide areas. Another key philosophy and principle of positional play is no more than 3 players in a horizontal space. There can only be 3 players and less. This is to ensure equitable distribution of players on the pitch. This football philosophy does not restrict players to occupy one position on the pitch, and most likely they involve constant movement and rotation of playing position. For example, if a winger tucks in and cuts inside and a fullback overlaps, it is on the owners of the central midfielder to push and occupy the position left by the fullback to cover for the fullback advancing. Alternatively, if the center midfielder pushes up to occupy the half space, the winger will be forced to play out wide, and when there are more than three players in the same vertical space, the fullback will push out to give the team extra width. Alternatively, the holding midfielder drops in between the center backs during build-up, and this constant rotation amongst players ensures the team is not easily marked, and this is a common feature among teams that employ positional play tactics, such as Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Now, another aspect of positional play is switching of play. This switching of play tactic involves switching the ball to one winger who is quick, fast, and technically advanced or technically superior to a fullback who's weak and is not quite fast. This may create a 2v1 numerical superiority in the wide areas, where a central midfielder might attack the half space or the winger may decide to take on the fullback. This is common amongst Manchester City, where we see half space runs by Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan. So, what has made Pep so strong? And that is what we want to analyze now. And I'm going to show you how his system is quite adaptable and why managers have failed to beat this system that he employs. And I'm going to show you demonstratively how he sets up his team. So when teams decide to go man-to-man press against Manchester City, their first normal teams will usually drop both of their center backs deep to drag opponents out of play, but Manchester City will push a center back in and the goalkeeper will push forward to play as an extra center back, forming this 4-2-4 system the way Brighton built up, but now the goalkeeper is playing as an extra center back, enabling Manchester City to have their 4-man overload in midfield. This has led a lot of teams rather to prefer just to sit off Manchester City, because if you press them high, you open spaces for them to try and attack. Now, Pep in this system can either adapt by having his two center backs and wide full backs playing wide, and Andre Rodri playing as a single pivot as Manchester City shift to a 4-3-3. But again, in this system now, you are overloaded in midfield if you decide to go man-to-man with all his 4 defenders. This is by a winger can drop deep, receive the ball and lay it off to a midfielder who can be making runs in the channels, something that Gundogan, De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva do often when they play against Manchester City. So therefore, teams are quite conservative when they are playing against Pep, because also Manchester City are quite efficient when with the ball. So in some instances, when Manchester City decide to play their 2 pivots, they may decide to stagger them so that one pivot is deeper and he can receive the ball if not marked and run with the ball. This is something that Bernardo Silva does quite effectively for Pep. In the attacking phases of play, Manchester City usually ensure they have a 5-man attack, and this is aided by the two attacking midfielders pushing forward close to the center forward. Now, when teams decide to sit on these 2 midfielders and their wingers starting wide, what happens is that now Manchester City push their goalkeeper Ederson high up the pitch, and Ederson now tries and starts to play as a 3rd center back, splitting the center backs wide and enabling them to carry the ball, drawing out players out of position and immediately playing balls to players in space. This system has made a lot of teams so difficult to identify Manchester City's weakness. And if you try to cover one position of weakness for Manchester City, another position of weakness opens for them. You can see here also, now a team has decided to sit deeper to try to cover both the 2 pivots while having a front 4 ready and eager to press. So what you'll see Manchester City like to do is that they like to progress down the middle, and you will see a player such as John Stones coming in midfield, and the other 2 fullbacks playing as wide center backs, extremely wide, so that they can stretch the area of play. And at some time, this you might find Ruben Dias playing as a single center back during build, with the likes of Stones and Rodri coming deep, and also the dropping in Haaland to create strong numerical overloads in midfield. Manchester City like to progress their ball through midfield, and this also enables them to make line breaking passes to the half spaces for the runs of their wingers who like to stay wide. So when teams decide to go man-to-man with Manchester City and try to condense the central progression of the play, you will see Pep now trying to use his wide centre-backs quite to his strength, and this is by enabling the wide centre-back to receive the ball and start to push forward with the ball, dragging out players out of position, with also his midfielders coming deep out of the midfield position and dragging midfielders out of position to play quick 1-2s, enabling them to still be able to beat this overload that has been generated by opposition teams trying to stop them from building from the back. So in this instance, he's able to draw out opposition midfielders out of position and now engage his team in a 5-man overload in midfield. Also, you might find him pushing one of his pivots high up the pitch so that they can form a diamond kind of system, and this staggered position enables them to easily progress the ball through the middle, something that Stones and Rodri do effectively when they are playing together as a duo. Now, in the game against Arsenal, we also saw another tactic that Manchester City employed, and this tactic was playing with no wingers. So in this case, Pep Guardiola's fullbacks were the ones who were starting quite wide, and Manchester City created an overload of 6 players in midfield. And this was achieved by their 2 wingers playing close in midfield, playing like pseudo wingers. In this system now, Manchester City had a 3-man midfield as well as an extra 2 players in the half spaces. So in this case, a team was finding it quite difficult, especially Arsenal were finding it quite difficult dealing with this midfield overload. So what teams will do is now the teams will come and congest themselves in the middle of the park, trying to stop Manchester City, but this now enables Pep Guardiola's fullbacks to be quite free, and we saw Kyle Walker pushing forward time and time again, having space on the ball, and Manchester City can create these wide overloads, creating 3v2s or 4v2s against opposition fullbacks. This enables them to quickly maneuver the space and have a player attacking the half space, the wide space, and the central space. So in some games, Manchester City might also start their system in a 4-2-3-1 system. And again, this is also quite detrimental for teams, because when you try to close one opening for Manchester City, they always find a way to exploit another weakness. This is why this makes them a very dangerous team. If you decide to sit on both of their pivots in this kind of phase and use your 2 holding midfield to start their build-up again, they'd rather restart their build-up time and time again until they're able to create these overloads. But the role of John Stones is quite important, since his position and his flexibility to shift from centre-back into midfield is quite instrumental for Manchester City. And the tactical flexibility of Bernardo Silva, his ability to shift wide, drop deep and play all positions in midfield, is also quite effective for Manchester City. These are some of the tactical situations that Pep Guardiola generates for himself, making his team unpredictable and strong. So, can you beat Pep Guardiola? Yes, but you need players who will be quite clinical with their chances, and you need to be quite ready to suffer and allow Manchester City their build-up system. Line up in more of a 4-3-3 system, and when everybody is fit, you'll find somebody like John Stones will come in for Manuel Akanji, or Akanji will shift to the left back and Guardiola will drop to the bench. So we're going to try to look at how these teams play and what system they employ. Before we start our analysis, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. So at the Etihad, Pep Guardiola has had a resounding success, having a very long winning streak at the Etihad. We know Manchester City is a possession-based team, and Manchester City spends most of its time in the middle third and the opposition third of the pitch. But playing against a team that also like to dominate possession, Pep Guardiola this game will not have majority of possession as he likes. Manchester City are quite even in all the attacking areas of the pitch. They attack both the left, middle and the right side because of the positional play system that Guardiola employs. Let's see how this works. So when majority of the team has been fit throughout the season, this is how Guardiola has been lining up his team. So when John Stones is in the team is where we see Manchester City at their strongest position. Guardiola likes to have front five running at the opposition's backline. He does this by pushing John Stones in midfield and having Ederson play as a centre back so that he can have this box midfield overload against his opposition. The four-man backline with Ederson playing as a centre back enables them to outnumber the first line of pressure, and they can easily build through the middle by Ederson picking the free eights who try to pull out during build-up shape. Now, Manchester City, and when Stones plays, they have a good understanding with Rodri, and they can start in a staggered pivot position where both of them will try to drag each other in a staggered position to allow players such as Bernardo Silva and Julian Alvarez to pick balls and immediately attempt to thread through balls for the runs of Erling Haaland. This is a great strength that Manchester City have. So opponents usually try to let Manchester City to build through the back, but we saw against Chelsea went toe-to-toe with them and Manchester City scored some goals in transitions. Now, in these instances, you can see the clear understanding of John Stones to receive the ball in tight areas and try to link up with Manchester City, aiming to overload the fullbacks in a 2v1 system. Also, the presence of the likes of John Stones also enables them to counter-press, and his excellent reading of the game enables him to know when to drop to the backline to give the team support during build-up.